Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Service Impact Podcast. Today I'm being joined by Matthew Hughes. He's a business affairs manager with Birdie Management, and he has over 10 years of experience overseeing broadcast, digital, and integrated productions for major brands. He specializes in contract negotiation, production operations, and compliance, ensuring creative excellence within legal and regulatory frameworks. So Matthew, thanks for taking time and joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so the last time that we talked, and for anybody tuning into this episode, you can go back and find another episode at serviceimpact.com where we talked about traditional AI, and we are going to move into the generative AI, which we touched on just a bit in our last conversation, but we felt like it was worth another episode as we're moving into a place where you've got your traditional answer engines that are kicking out great answers for all of us, and but we've also got this stuff that's being created and visually. And I guess before I go any further, can you help us understand, Matthew, what is the difference between what we consider traditional AI and generative AI?
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, Lance, like more traditional AI is kind of a supplement to research, a supplement to basically just an elevated Google search. You know, that's what you're using your chat GPT for. Heck, I know I've used it for learning French, and it has been excellent. But then in the world that I kind of work in, and I think you as well, is we're looking at people using it more and more creatively, both for, hey, I want to do something creative and I don't necessarily have like the skill set, so I'm going to lean into these engines to do it. But more and more, I'm going to look to generate ads for my brand. I'm going to look to generate music. I'm going to look to generate images and film. And that's more kind of the pond that I'm swimming in professionally, and definitely where I'm seeing more and more of a sticky situation.
Sticky for sure, because how do you even have generative AI if it hasn't at least at some point learned from somebody's creations?
Absolutely. And as I'm sure you know, and everyone listening has seen in the news, there are innumerable lawsuits that are happening. One of the earliest ones, probably about a year ago now, was that some of the big photo stock houses like Getty brought a class action suit against some of the AI engine owners, basically saying, hey, you took our royalty-free images and you used them to train your engine. There's one that is current, I believe, where a number of authors are doing the same thing and saying like, hey, you stole our books and you scanned them into your engine and used our copyrightable works to train your engine, and now other people are gleaning, benefits from that without there being any kind of monetary compensation to the original authors.
Yeah, and where are we at with that sort of case law? And I'm sure that's not. We're just setting precedents at this point. Right. I mean, because I'm sure there's plenty of suitors out there that are saying, "Hey, that's my stuff." Yeah. I mean, or you've used your model to basically train on my creations. I mean, totally. Isn't that? It seems difficult that you'd be able to argue otherwise.
Yeah, I think so. I think there, in my estimation, there are two kind of pillars of controversy, I guess, maybe around generative AI. There's the, hey, where did this robot learn this stuff pillar, which is the very reductive answer is it stole it, and which is a problem legally, copyright law, trademark, that stuff is real. And then there's the other pillar, which is I think how that AI created stuff is received by the general public. And so I kind of have a foot in both camps. I'm not a lawyer, but I read nerdy lawyers' blogs about this stuff for both delight and my job. And so there is, like you said, like there are precedent-setting cases right now. The other broader issue is that there's no regulation whatsoever currently. There's certainly no federal regulation around any kind of AI company, and that's a whole other kettle of fish that I both have strong opinions on and also do not know enough about to have said opinions, so I won't share them on this episode. But then the thing that I think is the most interesting for me is the tension that I'm finding in the industry between creatives and C-suite brand people who are like, generative AI is awesome and we should use it everywhere all the time in everything we're making. And then the public reception to, like, there was, all the Christmas Coca-Cola ads this year. We're speaking in December 2025. Like, all the Christmas Coke ads that I have seen this year are all very clearly AI generated. And I've seen on Reddit people who have just taken it apart. Both, like, it looks gross, it's in the uncanny valley, which as like a film guy I completely understand. We've all had nightmares about the Polar Express, like what's going on with those kids. But also they've just pointed out, look at the axle configuration on the trucks. They don't make sense. Like, there's stuff in there that is factually incorrect, which devalues your brand. Like Coca-Cola, we want polar bears and we want real trucks coming into town with the same song that we heard all through the 90s, and we want Santa at the end. Like, that's what we're looking for from that brand at Christmas time. Just like we're looking for the same Hershey's Kisses ringing a bell. Like, there are standards of advertising that it's almost like there's a social contract, in my opinion, between the brand and the public. And it's like, we understand that you are this brand, it's Christmas time, we want to see this from you. And Coke, for some reason, has gone, no, let's go all in on generative AI, which on the, who knows what engine they're using. I assume one that they built themselves and it's sandboxed, but who knows? We don't know the prompts that they put in. We don't know where it got that information from. We don't know if the people that are in those ads are based on real people, which could come up with, a right of publicity issue. And then you have the PR kind of backlash, as it were, where people are like, hey, we hate this. Like, what you're making is gross and we don't like it. And so I found that my job has been trying to both warn against, like, there could very be down the road genuine legal ramifications if your brand uses generative AI. There can be almost immediate ones because of a PR backlash. And furthermore, and this is more kind of copyright stuff, as of right now, nothing that is produced in a generative AI engine is copyrightable. So the moment that you're making something in one of those engines and putting it into the world, you no longer own it. You can change it and you can tweak it, and there's certain, again, because there's no regulation, there's different opinions on how much you need to change it until it becomes like a human created piece of art or advertising. But the initial issue is you make something, you put it out there, the likelihood is you're either going to get pushback on it because people don't like it, or you're going to, confuse your grandma because she thinks it's real. And then it's in the world and anyone can take it and do what they want with it because it's not protected in any way.
So we've got social and we've got philosophical issues.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like a soap opera, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it is that, and I think that's the thing that I'm really bumping up against is people saying, it's it's that great line from Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park, like your scientists spent so long wondering if they could, they didn't stop to wonder if they should. And that's what's happening with generative AI is people are like, look at this thing, and I'm not like a Luddite. I'm pro technology. I'm absolutely into it. However, I think that people are rushing ahead and trying to uh, use something that at some point the rubber band is going to snap back. I think that obviously, again, like there's social stuff going on with the fact that economists are saying like, hey, this whole thing is like a giant bubble, like the dot-com bubble was. There's controversy around like what does this mean like socioeconomically, like is it going to cause a recession? What are Nvidia doing, just constantly dumping money into OpenAI so that OpenAI can then come and buy more Nvidia processors? Like it seems very cyclical and very, again, not an expert, have read some stuff, probably know just enough to be very dangerous. But in terms of what we're talking about when it comes to your end users using generative AI, one of the biggest issue is say for example they have a word mark or an image that is trademarked for their business. The moment that they put that into like an OpenAI or a Midjourney or any of those engines to try and create like a new poster or a flyer or an ad that they're going to run on their social media, it's in there, and they no longer have rights to their thing that they own, and anyone else, now it's in the engine, so anyone else can start creating. They'd have to know the right prompts, of course. I'm not just saying they're just leaving it out for anyone to use, but the moment you put those things into an engine, you really lose control over how it's done. And then the moment that you then make that poster, you make that flyer, you make that 15-second spot that you want to put on your social media or run on local TV or whatever it might be, you don't own it. Like, sure, you can make changes to it, like I said, and make it more your property, but the initial thing that comes out, and it just gets fed back into the system. So then the thing that you've worked really hard to create all of a sudden is there, and other people can pull from it and really steal from it, but all you've done is you've left this thing just kind of out on the in the public square for anyone to take a chunk out of.
Are on this subject, it's like are do you have those same risks if your information is sandboxed?
I mean, yeah, no. So if you have the capacity to build a generative AI engine and just use, but then the question comes, what are you training that AI engine on? Because at some point, then sure, on the end goal, you might be safer because you've only put your information into your sandboxed engine. But then we go back to that first pillar of, have you built an AI engine that is stealing other people's copyright, and have you put yourself at risk there? So that's where I think, for me, it feels like there is a risk both on the end product because it's not copyrightable and there's PR backlash, and on the, okay, we're going to do it ourselves to save the, hey, we're keeping our information safe, but whose information are you using to train your engine? And I am well aware that I am displaying a bias. Like I know that about myself. Like I know full well that I'm like, because I think my experience thus far has been like, I'm a little older, I'm in my 40s, comfortably an elder millennial, and so I understand that there is a generation of between me and like up and coming creatives and art directors that I work with on the day to day, and they're in their 20s, and they're like, we've always had the internet, and this just is a natural extension of what the internet has already done. It's doing Photoshop for me, it's doing Illustrator for me, it's doing this stuff for me. And I can see their point of view, but because I have to have a slightly more legal mindset around it, and also because I'm part of the generation that has a larger purchasing power, so I'm part of the generation that is more the market for advertisers, I also have to understand that my peers, and again, of course, my experience is not universal, but my peers who are kind of a similar age to me, a little older, a little younger, most of us have a pretty negative view on brands who are using AI to sell their stuff. Um, we're also just tech savvy enough to still spot when it's AI. I'm sure 3 months from now I won't be able to tell the difference. Um, but yeah, I just think that there's this younger generation that are coming up and they're just assuming that this stuff is safe because, again, not to get overly philosophical, like millennials did kind of the hard work of making the internet safe and calling out nonsense on the internet so that Gen Z have inherited a technology that has been kind of like it's been beta tested. Like your kids, Lance, like they have inherited. I had to deal with MySpace and I had to deal with early Facebook and I had to deal with, you know, bad websites when they first came out in the 90s. Like this was my cross to bear, as it were. And then your kids and mine have inherited an internet where it's just like it's web 2, and we're like, oh, this is great, and we feel good about it. And so now they're being handed new technology and maybe haven't got the skill set or the patience to beta test this new stuff like we had to with the early internet. And so they're just like, well, it's part of the internet, right? So it's fine. And they're not necessarily thinking about like, well, where's this stuff stolen from? What does this stuff mean if I put it out there? And I just think that it's happening so fast. I think I mentioned on the last episode, there's that video from maybe 3 years ago of Will Smith eating spaghetti, and it's absurd and it doesn't look like him, and it just is so clearly AI generated. And now you fast forward to today and you're like, that could be filmed. That could have been filmed in person. I'm not sure. I think Google just released like a new version of their engine, and I've seen some stills produced in it, and it's genuinely really tricky to know. So I think that's going to make it harder, is like, can we know it's AI, which then kind of maybe deals with like the PR issue, because it's going to look less and less like AI and it's going to look more and more real. And so there is going to be a shift probably in the general population's consciousness, where they just go, okay, yeah, sometimes stuff maybe feels a little off, but I'm comfortable with it. So then you're just left with, is it ownable and was it stolen? And so that's when we're going to look to, stuff like the Getty lawsuit, stuff like the thing that that group of authors are bringing, and those are going to set precedents. And I think with the current state of, I'm going to tread very carefully, with the current state of the courts and the Supreme Court and the federal government, with where stuff is at, it seems like less coverage is going to be offered than maybe I would hope. So then it's just a case of, does it become the Wild West until there's more regulation, or is it just continue to be completely deregulated? I think the concern I would have for people who are looking to use generative AI right now is, just because it's the Wild West right now doesn't mean it always will be, and doesn't mean there won't be retroactive costs to using it freely now.
Yeah, well put. And I was thinking as you were talking, kind of to your last point here, is the snowball too big at this point? I mean, it
Too
feels
big to
like,
fail, or too big?
yeah, or just to
Yeah.
stuff it all back in the box per
Yeah.
se. I mean, like, it's all been revealed. It's racing at Mach speed, and do a few lawsuits just all this stuff all of a sudden put the genie back in the bottle?
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I mean, and now I will acknowledge, like, I was aware of, but not old enough to fully understand the dot com bubble in like the 99 2000s time, because obviously that was a similar economic bubble, but when it burst, the internet didn't go away. You know, we still have the internet. So again, to speculate wildly, which is one of my favorite things to do, I'm sure that economically something is going to break when it comes to AI and the fact that essentially it's six corporations just all spending money on each other and that's sustaining the bubble. Um, I think that right now AI as a business, it's not generating revenue. You know, it's I'm sure at some point I saw this week in the news like ChatGPT is going to start displaying ads. So I'm like, okay, great. So that's one of the ways that they're looking to start revenue is in between asking you about your French homework, it's going to tell you to go buy a pizza. Um, but I think yet I agree. Yes, it's too late to fully put the AI toothpaste back in the tube. However, I think much like with the .com stuff, like there's going to be a shift in how it's used. I think that that will be interesting to see with the lawsuits and any possible future regulation. Um, like I think there will need to be. So I hope that there will be soon some kind of regulation on how it's used. Um, but I think it is just a part of our society now, much like the internet is. You know, we you can't go a day without using the internet, even if you're like trying. You know, you can do like I'm not going to spend money, I'm not going to, order food, I'm not going to buy anything, whatever. You're still going to end up using the internet because you have to get somewhere and you need GPS on your phone, or you're just sending a text message and it goes through an Amazon web service or whatever it is. Um, so I think that AI is intrinsically a part of our society. I just think that it is much like the early internet, it is in beta testing and people are treating it like this is its final form without considering possible shifts and changes both on an economic scale and also on how the public is willing to interact or accept what is being sold by something that is so visibly AI. Again, I know I'm always kind of bringing it back to like PR and advertising, but that's just because that's the waters I swim in. I think that so I am not what the kids would call terminally online, but I am online like a lot. I have to be for my job. I spend a lot of time on the internet. Um, I am relatively meme savvy. Even my kids think so, and they're 15 and 12 and 8, so I'm doing all right. Now, my wife is as close to a Luddite as you can be when you have to have a smartphone in the current society. And I have overheard from our living room our kids showing her stuff on the internet and her going, "How is that real?" And our kids having to explain it's AI. And so I'm also aware that she's my age. We're the same. She was born a year after me. Like we are the same age. So it's not even that every millennial is totally tech savvy and will understand what a is AI and isn't. Um, I think there's a level of learning that comes into like, do I understand that this is generative AI or not? Can I spot? Obviously the joke is always like there's extra fingers. You know, whatever it may be, like the light fixtures aren't right. But when it gets into that level of like nuance where you're actually having to study an image or a moving image to understand that it's AI, and now like Google's come out with 2.0 or whatever, and it's even harder. I think that, um, yeah, I just think that it is. I think you're right. It's here to stay. I just don't think it will look quite as messy or as huge, I hope, as it is right now.
Yeah. So as marketing budgets are being let's just put it this way, there's a trend towards I think in a lot of aspects of business, do more with less.
Mm-hmm.
and you've got this AI tool
Yeah,
that will allow you to get 80% there for 10% of the cost.
absolutely.
There's and for those that live by the 80-20 rule, and I would contend that a lot of executives do, live by the 80-20 rule, that's a really appealing route to go versus, being a purist per se. And I'm not passing judgment or in any way, shape, or form. I'm just raising the question that you've got this creative side and traditional creatives and people that really have a lot of pride in the work that they do and how they've developed their craft versus this business case that is real and that
Yeah.
is legitimate, that is asking for agencies and for in-house teams to do more. And I mean, it's no wonder that it's appealing. I mean, you talk about Coca-Cola, and what percentage of the public would notice those issues? And I think that those things are all weighed and going, okay, we can kick this thing out for 30 grand versus 300 grand, and in terms of costs. And I think those are just real conversations that are happening right now.
Yeah, and I think fully justified as well, because you're right, because we've seen in our industry already there are entry level jobs at ad agencies that are specifically around how well can you write prompts into AI engines to make the stuff that we want to make, versus do you have a 4 year graphic design degree, and are you, totally able to use Illustrator and Photoshop to mock up, a poster. So it's already shifting the way that people are hiring and spending money. Not to mention, there I have art directors who are like, "Hey, will you review these?" And I have to just be like, "Yeah, for sure. Like I can review that. It's clearly AI." So then there's this new work stream that's happening around, we have to log our prompts because of, you know, if at some point there's some kind of regulation, we have to log our prompts and make sure that we didn't put in like copy this painting that's trademarked or whatever. Um, Even though we're trying to make it look this certain style. So I think that there is already a shift happening at all levels, both like C suite down, about, you know, hey, we can save money, and people are already understanding, oh, hey, this is a way that I can train in a new technology, and I can find there's suddenly this like opening niche that was never there before. So you have entry level applicants being like, well, I'm good at this new thing that maybe your more traditional art directors and creatives and copywriters aren't as good at, because they spent 4 years at school getting a degree and are excellent at Photoshop. I just think what's going to be interesting is what happens if and when this bubble bursts, and what does generative AI look like after that? Because I think, again, to your earlier point, it's too late to be done with it completely. Like it is here, and so how does that shift? And how does that shift with brands, especially at like the executive level, saying like we're going to go maybe all in on AI? And does that mean that there's going to be a deficit in people who understand composition and art history? And does it mean that things are going to just all look slightly off? Is there going to be a situation where there's a public outcry because everyone is tired of living in the uncanny valley? Is it going to get to the point where AI is genuinely indistinguishable from real life? And the executives are going to be like, great, we can just pay a subscription model to this one engine, whatever it is, and feed it prompts, and we'll hire people who are good at prompts and understand the brand voice. And our brand book's going to start to come with like, this is how you use AI prompts to get this brand voice or this brand color scheme or whatever it is. I think it is going to cause a shift in the industry, and I've seen in the time that I've been in the industry a shift from traditional TV to social media, and my guess is that this is probably the next shift. Is there's been a huge reduction in production budgets between like, hey, we're making like a classic TV campaign and it's $1 million to $1.5 million. Oh, we're just going to move to social media, but we're going to make the same amount of work, but we need it to be cheaper. So now our budget slashed to 500,000. And I think the moment that AI can do what a film crew can do, we're going to look at a massive shift in the industry again. And it'll be, hey, you have $50,000 and almost all of that is staffing to write the prompts and then post-production costs. Because we don't need a film crew. We don't need a 2-day shoot in LA. We don't need to rent a camera. We don't need copywriters because AI did it. And then we just had someone who's good at the brand voice who maybe would still be called a copywriter, but all they did was edit the script. So yeah, I think there is a shift, and I don't think that it is wrong for brands to use generative AI. I would just preach caution. Have someone who knows what they're doing review the engine's terms and conditions. Start there. Start with, hey, do you own the stuff that this makes? Like, because for most of them, no. Is there the potential of a future retroactive lawsuit because you used an engine that stole copyrighted material? For a lot of them, yeah. There are some that say that they're safe. I know that Adobe and Shutterstock, both of them are like, hey, our stuff is trained on our images that we own. So there's a level of safety there that maybe isn't in some of the other kind of bigger, more easily accessible, free engines. And so first, yeah, check your terms and conditions. That's why people like me, why business affairs managers exist, because we do this stuff and give you a one sheet and go, this one's high risk, this one's low risk. And then just, I think, really consider, do you want your brand, while it is still obviously AI, do you want your brand to be associated with a technology that has a mixed reception when it comes to the public? I think if you're comfortable with, like, if you're looking at your pros and cons list and you're like, it's cheaper and we save money, it means more eyeballs will be on it. It means that we're going to get more engagement because more people see it, and that's worth any kind of negative pushback. Go for it. Just make sure you understand what engine you're using, the terms and conditions. Do you own it? Are you putting yourself at risk for future retroactive issues? And if you're fine with all those risks, like, dude, go nuts. Like, here's the other thing. AI is freaking fun. It's funny. Me and my friends sent each other pictures back and forth of a xenomorph from Aliens eating a bag of hot Cheetos. Like, that's fun. Like, it's a good time. And I think that it can be a really useful tool. It's just being beta tested. And do you want to be part of a society-wide beta test when your brand's reputation could potentially be on the line?
Well, the story's not over, and I have a feeling that you and I are going to be talking about this semi-regularly. I mean, 6 months from now, so many things that we just talked about today, Matthew, could be completely different.
Yeah,
crazy times. And what a wonderful time to be alive. If you're into technology and you love marketing and advertising, I mean, there's no shortage of entertainment value and learning, and I mean, it's kind of got it all right now. It's a great flick right now. His name is Matthew Hughes. and he's a business affairs manager with Birdie Management. Matthew, thanks so much for making time for us today.
Of course. Thanks for having me again.
And if you've got any more desire to hear additional podcasts, you can head over to serviceimpact.com. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.